Wii Sports Resort is one of the most beloved and nostalgic games of all time. Nintendo clearly put lots of care into making this game with all the details and Easter eggs. There are many videos that feature Easter eggs, but many of them fail to include most of the ones we'll be talking about today. My friend and legendary speedrunner of Wii Sports Resort, Benson44, compiled a list of every Easter egg in the game, whether it be intentional or not. And today we'll be going over every Easter egg in Wii Sports Resort. Stay tuned, because towards the end, some things get a little wild. Many stamps in the game have different names depending on if you're playing NTSC, which is America and Japan, and PAL, which is Europe. By doing the button combination A, B, down, 1, 2, up, minus, plus, minus, plus on the title screen, it's possible to see which build version you're playing on, including the exact date and time your copy of the game was made. This code actually went undiscovered for a decade, but it's intentional. Each sport will have a unique location for where your Mii stands on the title screen if that sport is being mentioned on the title screen. Sometimes the message on the title screen, which tells you of recent activity in the game, can fail to have a space before the message repeats. Based on screenshots of old builds of the game, it can be seen that the sports are sorted into three main categories, those being variety sports on the top row, ball sports in the middle, and ride sports on the bottom. After defeating Matt, you can use his purple sword by holding 1 while pressing OK to enter the sport. You can play at dusk while holding 2 while pressing OK to enter the sport. Any match played between 900 and 999 skill will automatically be at dusk, as well as the match against the champion Matt. Upon reaching Pro Class, the armor you and your opponent wear becomes larger, which becomes even larger after defeating the champion Matt. When playing 2-player, it is possible to have the small ring designed for tiebreakers, but in every round by holding the minus button when pressing OK to enter the sport. Similarly to boxing in the original Wii Sports, the higher the skill level the player is, the more Miis are present in the audience. It's possible for both players to hit each other off at the same time while playing on the smaller ring, resulting in a draw for that round. This has only occurred in 2-player games, but may be possible in 1-player games if you get lucky enough. If you slice close to the candle object without cutting the candle, the flame of the candle will be put out. By performing a thrust attack on an object, the object will be pushed back without being cut, and the same sound that plays when the object lands will also play. This will also count as an incorrect cut. On Japanese versions of the game, the green checkmark that appears when cutting objects correctly is replaced by a green circle. If a Mii is knocked off of a ledge after losing all of their hearts, a balloon will spawn and pick them up to stop them from falling to their deaths. When playing Showdown for the first time in a play session, the time of day of the first game we play will always be high noon, which will then turn into dusk after completing or failing a stage, then midnight. After a game at midnight, the time will go back to high noon, and the cycle will repeat. The times of day on NTSC are known as high noon, dusk, and midnight, whereas on PAL they are referred to daylight, dusk, and moonlight. The favorite color of the current player's Mii determines the color and pattern on the wakeboard. The higher the difficulty played, the lower score required to get a high amount of skill. By pressing A and 2 at the same time while the balloon is on screen, the balloon will pop and give the player full points assuming they land in a valid area for their throw. When 1 is held during practice, the flight path will be visible. When playing multiplayer, each player will have their own dog with a unique color scheme, as well as having their own Frisbee that is the same color as their cursor. On the Japanese versions, the green checkmark that appears when landing a throw in a valid area, and the red cross that appears when landing a throw in an invalid area, are replaced with a red circle landing in a valid area, and a blue cross when landing in an invalid area. A musical note can be seen coming from the dog when it is bringing the Frisbee back to you to pick up. The amount of notes is a general indication of how well you're playing that game. By holding 2 when pressing A to enter a course, Expert Mode will be enabled, which removes all HUD features, such as the minimap and wind information. On hole 14, it is possible to see a castle far out of bounds. If a throw lasts for 30 seconds, it automatically counts as out of bounds and will respawn the player from where they started the throw, with a penalty of an extra stroke added, which was implemented to prevent soft locks.
What? Oh, what? It did the thing! It did the...
Despite Frisbee golf and golf sharing most features, the Frisbee golf tutorial appears for 5 games, whereas the golf tutorial only appears for 4. By holding 2 while you press A to select the difficulty when entering the sport, you will enable Expert Mode, which hides all HUD information, such as wind information and the aiming circle. Each stage contains a secret target which rewards 10 points upon hitting it, with each secret target being one of the objects that can show up in Speed Slice. The wind speed in a stage may be weaker depending on how well you played in the previous stage. By drawing the bow back and quickly shaking the remote around, a text box will appear telling you to steady your aim, which is accompanied by a disappointing sound playing from the crowd, and a unique animation will play where your Mii will look down and shake their head in annoyance. When playing team play on multiplayer, the final shot of a round will use a golden arrow, which awards double points. It is possible to skip a tutorial when playing archery for the first time on a Mii by pressing minus, despite the game never mentioning that it's possible. After shooting a moving target, the target for the next shot will start moving from the position that it was in when it was struck by the previous arrow, even though the target still moves after it's hit by the first arrow. It is unknown whether this is intentional or not. When getting a ball in the net, fireworks will go off in the background, with the amount of fireworks going off being equal to the rack you're on. Getting a shot on the 4th rack will produce 4 fireworks in the background. By doing a throwing motion while pointing the remote downwards, it is possible to do a throw without jumping. If balls bounce off surfaces and hit your Mii's head, the Mii's head will be moved in the direction the ball pushed it. The intended way to hold the remote is to hold the remote on its sides so that the A button is facing to the left of you and the B button is facing to the right of you. By holding 2 while pressing OK to enter the sport, the match will be played at night. The match against the champion, Tommy, will automatically be played at night, regardless of whether 2 is held when entering the sport. Pickup game has different names depending on the region you're playing. NTSC is pickup game, but the PAL version it's 3-on-3 game. In the last 30 seconds of the game, the losing team will have different starting positions than usual. The Mii's can either stand just outside the paint or in the 3-point area. After beating the champion Lucia, it is possible to play using a slipper by holding 1 while pressing OK to enter the sport. By holding 2 while pressing OK to enter the sport, the match will become an 11-point game, and the ball will move at much higher speeds. By having an extremely far and fast rally, it's possible to have the opponent hit the ball over the fence that surrounds the hotel the sport takes place in. To get the most powerful smash shot, you must hit the ball with a small amount of backspin while the ball is at the peak of its height after an opponent stumbles. It's possible to have the ball bounce on the same side of the table twice on the opponent's side by performing a serve where the ball is hit very late and with not much power, but lots of backspin. The only Mii this trick works on is Cole due to his awful reaction time. The following Easter eggs are in every bowling mode. Upon reaching Pro Class, the ball used will have a star pattern across it, and is thought to spin more easily, although this has never been proven. By holding different directions on the D-pad while pressing OK to enter the sport, it's possible to choose a different color of bowling ball besides the standard blue color. The directions are right for a gold ball, down for a green ball, and left for a pink ball. If the ball is thrown behind the player, the Mii's in the background will jump and spin and play a shock sound. If the ball is thrown into another lane, the crowd will play a laughing sound. It is not possible to interact with balls or pins in other lanes, as they don't have collision. Standard game goes by different names depending on which region the game is played in. On NTSC, it is called Bowling Standard Game, but on PAL, it's called Bowling 10-Pin Game. In 100-pin, by throwing the ball along the barriers, you can hit a red button. You will cause an explosion sound to play. The screen will shake, and all the pins will be knocked over. You will also get a stamp for this, and you can even use the strategy when going for the split spare stamp, since as long as the pins standing are positioned correctly for a split spare, the game will count it as one, no matter how the pins are knocked over. If the ball is thrown over the barriers and into the gutter, the crowd will play a laughing sound, and any Mii's close to where the ball is thrown will jump. Each stage will spawn you in a different place when entering free cruising mode. If free cruising is entered while playing on the stage Lighthouse, the time of day will be set to night when free cruising. If you manage to get 9.9 points from a ring, a unique sound will play that's the same as the sound that played in the E3 build when getting 10 points from a ring. At the end of the stage marina, Mii's on the ground above you can be heard cheering, and will cheer for you when the finish line is crossed. When going past a ring you need to collect, a prompt saying wrong order will appear on screen, and will quickly cause the player to void out. When this happens, an animation not seen in Slalom Course will play, where the Mii is pulled off their power cruiser into the water. When respawning from this, the player appears from under the water. By using the D-pad during a game of canoeing, it's possible to move the camera around. The speed of the ducks is dependent on how far your high score is for that meet. When playing multiplayer, each player will be assigned a role, which is decided based on what they did during that game. In cycling, by moving the nunchuck stick while in a race, a bell sound will play. The D-pad can be used to control the camera. Some Miis will have a pizza box on their bike, but contrary to popular belief, the pizza box is not unlockable. A mechanic known as auto steer is active at all times, which guides the player throughout the course, and it also makes it very difficult to move backwards. By quickly snapping the controllers to the side, it is possible to perform a maneuver known as a power slide, which allows some turns to be taken much tighter. In cycling co-op and cycling versus, there are no spectators in the background, and objects associated with spectators are missing, such as tents and umbrellas. The background music changes depending on gameplay factors, such as how much stamina the player has, how far into the race they are, and how fast they're moving. Several stages have different names depending on the region. If the player manages to turn around, they will void out shortly after, and be respawned close to where they voided out. You can hear the sounds of bowling pins being knocked over when close to the bowling alley in Woohoo Town. If 2 is held while pressing OK to enter the sport, the opening cutscene that occurs when playing Wii Sports Resort for the first time will be able to be played again. The camera can only hold 20 photos, meaning any photos taken after the 20th will not be saved, and therefore won't award any points. The bird awards 1 point whenever it's in a photo. If 2 is held while pressing A to select the time of day, all eye points and balloons will be disabled. The D-pad can be used to control the camera. The nunchuck can be plugged in while playing Island Flyover, which changes the controls a bit. The joystick controls the camera, the C-stick shoots the poppers on the plane, and the Z button cuts the engine of the plane. When flying close to the lighthouse, one of the several Morse code messages can be heard. The translated messages are listed below. When flying close to the hillside cabins area, the sound of someone playing Super Mario Bros. Can be heard. When flying near the bowling alley in town, you can hear the sound of bowling pins being knocked over. When flying near the Queen Peach, music can be heard playing from the boat. When flying near the Summerstone Castle, music can be heard playing faintly in the castle. While flying near the Cabana Lagoon, music can be heard playing from the cabana. When flying around the town at night, you can occasionally hear cats meowing. When flying near Evergreen Grove at night, you can occasionally hear the howling of wolves. When flying near the Sea Serpent's Cavern at night, a strange noise that sounds like a person singing can be heard. It's possible to land in all body of waters where the plane can fit, meaning it's possible to land in the hotel pool and the fountain in town. Occasionally, a whale can be seen coming out of the sea. If you manage to crash and your Mii hits a ceiling that's close to the ground, it's possible to have that Mii fall and land on the ground. Unfortunately, the magma scene in Makawoohoo is just watercolored differently. If you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around. Some of these glitches get pretty insane. By blocking just before your sword hits your opponent, it's possible to always hit the opponent, even if the attack should have been blocked by the orientation of their sword. This is called block canceling, and speedrunners use this to hit opponents off the edge very, very quickly. Yes, that includes my honey bun mat. When a Mii is knocked off the ring, it's possible for them to hit the edge of the ring with their body still falling down. By hitting an opponent and then doing a lot of fast swings shortly that barely miss the opponent, it's possible to make the opponent walk backwards until they reach the edge of the ring. The community dubbed this as a ghost hit, but it's not useful since block canceling is already a strategy. In Speed Slice, by pausing just as an object comes on screen, it's possible to see the correct direction to cut while the game is paused, which allows you to correctly cut the object very early, sometimes before it can even hit the ground. In Showdown, if you move through a stage too quickly, you will reach an invisible wall, which causes your Mii to stand still while other Miis approach, which disappears when Miis get close to you. This wall can be bypassed by constantly swinging, which slowly moves the player forward. It's possible to see the enemy Mii spawning in on some stages if you progress through the stage quickly. By getting blocked just as the game ends, the player will eternally be in the stumbling animation on the end screen of the sport. In wakeboarding, by having very little speed and landing in the gap in the water, it's possible to get a jump that awards 0 points, but still causes the announcer to say a voice line, which is commonly known as a 0-point jump. In Frisbee golf, it's possible to get the Frisbee to clip through the floor when doing a throw, which will count as out of bounds once the Frisbee falls for long enough. It's possible to get a hole-in-one on many of the par 4 holes by having strong north winds and perfect throws. In archery, an extremely rare glitch can occur when shooting a specific part of the cake secret target on the final stage of beginner, where the arrow will bounce off of the cake and fall to the ground slowly, which does not award any points. It's unknown whether this can occur on other secret targets. Sometimes, when shooting the very edge of secret targets, the arrow can pass through the object. This is likely because the arrow doesn't stop moving the moment it hits the object, so when it's actually time for the arrow to stop moving, the tip of the arrow is no longer in the object, and so the game thinks the arrow didn't hit the object, and allows the arrow to keep moving. In basketball, there's a strategy known as Garrett Strat, which is used to consistently get balls into the net. This strat is done by moving the ball to the right as you jump, and then moving the ball towards the left when you shoot it. In pickup game, when a 2-point throw is done very close to the net, it's possible to block a throw and still have it go in. By doing the Garrett Strat to get consistent throws, it's possible to shoot around the right side of defenders. In golf, sometimes if a shot ends with the ball perfectly in between two surfaces, the game can display text saying that the ball is on one surface as the shot ends, and then act if the ball is on another surface when playing the next shot. It is possible to have the ball clip through the floor by having the ball land exactly where two different surfaces meet. Sometimes during a replay, it can be slightly different than the actual shot, which can lead to shots going in on the actual shot but not going in on the replay, or vice versa. The game will only count what happens in the actual shot, so a chip-in that occurs in the replay and not the actual shot would not have the score awarded for a chip-in. In all three bowling modes, by throwing immediately after pressing A to change the aiming from position to angle, or vice versa, it's possible to get the text on the left side of the screen to become very squashed. In power cruising, it's possible to collect points from a ring without actually being passed through it by hitting the edges of a top half of a ring. In cycling, by keeping the brakes applied and constantly doing the power sliding strategy mentioned earlier in a direction, it's possible to turn around and move completely backwards. On the stage Into Makawuhu, it's possible to skip ahead in the track by turning around and riding into the fences behind you, which causes you to clip through the fence as it only has collision on one side. However, this will not work as a shortcut, as it skips many required checkpoints in the track. Sometimes some Miis can be seen cycling through a track in the wrong direction, seemingly for no reason. Miis try not to fall in the water when possible, and can be seen riding up walls that the player is unable to do in order to not fall in.
What the heck? Hiroshi!
It is sometimes possible for a Mii to get stuck on top of another Mii temporarily. There's a glitch called cycling pull that can occur by Miis hitting each other. In Island Flyover, by flying between the cables on the Red Iron Bridge so that the wings are hitting the cables but not the body of the plane, it is possible to be constantly colliding with the cables without crashing. By braking just after a boost while flying, the plane moves slightly faster compared to simply doing constant boost. This is known as brake flying. By constantly flying downwards into the water and boosting such that the nose of the plane is touching the surface of the water and not the rest of the plane will skim along the surface of the water without ever landing, which makes the plane move faster than just flying straight and doing boosts. This can be combined with brake flying to achieve the fastest way to move around. This technique is known as water boosting. This was originally found in a Japanese glitch showcase video, but it's very difficult to do, and it's not viable for humans. And finally, if you get enough speed and manage to fly into the whale that appears occasionally, you will pass through it, since it doesn't have collision. And that's the end of the video. I again want to thank Benson for helping make this document. Please go check him out, he'll be in the description. He's absolutely nuts at the game. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully you learned something. Thanks for watching.